Welcome to the Explainer. I am so excited to share this one with you today because honestly, it completely changes how we think about the very reality around us. Okay, I want you to picture a vivid scene. It's 3:07 a.m., you're in a dense Costa Rican rainforest, it's pitch black, it's raining, and the air is just incredibly loud with this massive, overwhelming chorus of frogs. A researcher named Lena is standing right there in the middle of it, intensely focused, recording the nighttime audio. Now, in that loud, chaotic jungle, a super rare bare-necked umbrella bird lets out a call. But here's the crazy part. Lena completely misses it live. It isn't until later, when she runs the playback in her lab, that she actually discovers the call, perfectly hidden inside the frequencies of that frog chorus. You know how you eventually just stop noticing the hum of your refrigerator? Well, her auditory cortex had completely habituated to the sound of the frogs, literally filtering them out to save mental energy. And unfortunately, along with the frogs, she filtered out the bird. This prompted Lena to ask a massive, kind of mind-bending question. Exactly how much of reality are we missing right now, just because our brains are filtering it out? Section 1. How Brains Filter the World. Subtitle: The Thalamic Gatekeeper. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand how Lena missed that bird, we really have to look at the brain's internal security guard. Deep inside your brain is a structure called the thalamus, specifically the thalamic reticular neuron, and it acts as a literal gatekeeper for your senses. If this gatekeeper decides that incoming frequencies, like the constant droning croak of those frogs, are just redundant, predictable noise, it violently dampens those signals before you even have a chance to consciously process them. This whole process is known as sensory gating. Your thalamus blocks predictable environmental signals to protect your higher-level cortex from just getting totally overwhelmed. To study this in action, Lena used a really fascinating neurological test called P50 suppression. Basically, imagine playing two sharp auditory clicks for a subject, spaced just 50 milliseconds apart, and then measuring the brain's electrical reaction to see what actually gets through the gate. And this brilliantly illustrates how our minds work. When looking at a healthy brain, it automatically suppresses that second click. It essentially says, yep, I just heard that, it's expected noise, skip it, resulting in an amplitude ratio well below 0.5. On the other hand, an unfiltered brain reacts fully to both of those clicks, becoming really quickly overwhelmed by all that redundant data. What this tells us is that healthy humans are literally living inside a heavily constructed, deeply filtered version of reality. Scientists call this framework predictive coding. See, your cortex is constantly sending these top-down predictions about what the world around you should look and sound like. Your sensory areas then subtract those predictions from reality, so only the unexpected, surprises, the prediction errors ever actually reach your consciousness. Think of it like your brain's aggressive spam filter. Specialized NMDA receptors flag these unexpected errors. Meanwhile, thanks to a phenomenon called latent inhibition, your brain spends vastly less energy reacting to familiar, everyday noise. Section 2. Rewiring Your Sensory Gates. Subtitle: Hacking the Brain's Filters. But Lena wanted to know, could she hack this mechanism? Like, could she deliberately override her brain's filters without completely losing her mind? Her experiments started in the extreme, a 90-minute float inside a pitch-black sensory deprivation tank. Stripped of all environmental data, her cortex actually began generating intense hallucinations from zero input. This proved a really vital concept. Your sensory filters absolutely require incoming input to function properly. To really figure this out, she developed an incredible toolkit to systematically stretch her perceptual gates. She started with open monitoring meditation. By practicing this for 45 minutes a day over 8 weeks, she successfully raised her P50 suppression ratio from a highly filtered 0.45 all the way up to 0.68. The result? Her perceptual gates widened, and she could finally hear that umberbird live in the forest. But to prove this wasn't just some personal fluke, she took 10 human subjects and ran them through a 4-week protocol using a consumer-grade Muse EEG headband. The data was crystal clear. Just like Lena, the subjects' P50 filter ratios rose. Plus, their P300 amplitude, which is just the brain's electrical spike when it spots something novel, measurably increased specifically for oddball sounds. They were actually successfully opening their sensory gates. Lena then collaborated on a clinical psilocybin trial. Administering a 25 milligram oral dose drastically reduced the brain's alpha power. This actually aligns perfectly with the Rebus model, which argues that psychedelics lower the precision weighting, or basically the confidence your brain places on its own assumptions. By doing so, cortical entropy, essentially the flexibility of your brain network, increases, and trial participants reported vividly perceiving tiny, beautiful details in their environment that they previously would have entirely ignored. She also explored some heavy-duty neurotech. She built a neurofeedback game called Signal Hunt, where users learn to detect incredibly faint visual patterns called Gabor patches. Within 10 sessions, users reliably triggered a wide-aperture sensory state. She even used targeted brain stimulation, like gentle TDCS and magnetic TMS pulses, to physically disrupt the brain's habit of blinking past important details and those expectation effects. But here was her crucial realization. Her early prototypes overwhelmed users with a terrifying sensory overload. Complete filter removal causes massive, crippling anxiety. So she looked at studies of Zen monks who use focused attention meditation to actually strengthen their sensory filters. Lena realized the ultimate goal isn't just ripping your filters wide open. The goal is learning to move your filters dynamically in both directions, depending entirely on the context of your situation. Section 3, Real-World Filter Upgrades. Subtitle, Training the Brain Across Industries. Let's move to and see how this builds into something world-changing. Because once you can dynamically control your perceptual filters, human performance absolutely skyrockets. We are now seeing these exact perceptual training protocols scale across massive professional industries, completely upgrading how professionals process reality. Look at these amazing stats. In cybersecurity, analysts trained with oddball detection tasks are actually catching zero-day malware, reducing false negatives by 17%. In professional soccer, goalkeepers using open monitoring to unconsciously read a kicker's subtle hip cues have pushed their penalty save rates from 18% all the way up to 27%. And in a 2021 medical pilot, radiologists using perceptual learning modules increased their detection of rare hidden lung nodules by an incredible 23%. And the applications span far beyond that. In wildlife conservation, AI acoustic monitors are now using Bayesian precision weighting to suppress expected background noise and amplify the rare sounds of poachers' gunshots. Moving over to education, textbooks designed with varied, unpredictable fonts physically force students out of sensory habituation, boosting science test scores by 11%. And over in finance, traders trained to override their predictive confirmation bias are spotting market anomalies early, with one hedge fund cutting its drawdowns by 9%. Finally, this training is completely transforming mental health. It's helping reduce amygdala reactivity in PTSD patients whose threat filters are stuck wide open, and it's supporting schizophrenia patients using P50 neurofeedback. Autonomous vehicles are actively amplifying prediction errors to detect pedestrians hiding in dark shadows, cutting near misses by 12%. Even law mediators are leveraging these wide aperture states to track subtle pitch changes in human voices to reach much faster legal settlements. Section 4, Balancing Openness and Overload. Subtitle, The Airport Test. Now, with all this heightened awareness comes real risk, which we can clearly see in a high-stakes moment Lena experienced at a crowded airport terminal. Utilizing her newly broadened sensory filters, she noticed a single passenger walking with a very, very subtle gait anomaly and a strange bulge in their backpack. Everyone else's brain had completely filtered this person out as expected, normal background data. Lena alerted security, and they actually found a concealed weapon on that passenger. This terrifying success taught her a final, truly vital lesson. You have to balance sensory openness with cost-sensitive decision thresholds. You need an adaptive checklist that constantly weighs baseline expectations against signal novelty and carefully calculates the extreme cost of missing a true threat versus the cost of triggering a false alarm. Section 5, Adaptive Perceptual Filtering. Subtitle, The Final Framework. So the crucial point here is that humans can move beyond a fixed reality by consciously calibrating how their brains process novelty and expectation. This entire journey culminated in Lena officially publishing and licensing her definitive scientific framework to the world. It's called the Adaptive Perceptual Filtering Protocol, and it consists of 4 clear steps. Step 1 is a baseline filter assessment to see exactly how closed off your senses currently are. Step 2 is contextual openness training, using things like meditation and neurofeedback. Step 3 is precision recalibration, so you don't get completely overwhelmed by all that new data. And Step 4 implements strict decision thresholds. This protocol empowers absolutely anyone to consciously manage their reality without succumbing to sensory overload. It's such an empowering thought, isn't it?
The explainer's source material leaves us with this final, striking image of Lena walking through the Costa Rican rainforest at dawn. Because of her training, her sensory gates are in perfect harmony. She hears the roaring frogs, and she hears the rare umbrella bird, and she alone consciously chooses which signals to amplify. It really makes you wonder, as you go about your day-to-day, what hidden signals in your own life are you subconsciously filtering out right now?